Welcome to the CPTM Smart Partners Hub, and in particular, welcome to Keith.
Thank you.
Keith comes from Australia. Keith, you this year, actually, from our point of view, in the Smart Partners group, and in general, in global context, so many things took place. And in such a rapid development and rapid impact that is difficult, as we were discussing about, to catch the developments and the further developments. Never mind the blockchain and the standards and our sudden kind of interaction and support from the Standards Australia to be part of making the new standard, ISO standard. But there are actually issues which do require a quite thorough, you could say education, but a thorough understanding with a different base. And we were preoccupied in the last 3 months or so, particularly in relation to data and data science, and what does that mean for various, that is financial inclusion, that it is quality and standard, that is national visioning, that is national security, broadly defined, or is actually education itself. And you said that you have particularly had some preoccupation in education. So let's start first with you updating us about your education, and then we'll go into one or two other
Well, I'm on the corporate speaking circuit in Australia, so I go around giving talks at requests of clients in the corporate sector. And one of the issues that's come up has been the whole issue of work, the future of work. So we've seen the rise of the gig economy, so people are just working on demand, they do a bit of work here, a bit of work somewhere else. And so companies are very interested therefore about what is the future of work, and also how can we prepare today's students for this new era of work. So I've been particularly interested in the way in which I think you could argue that we've gone through 3 waves in the evolution of work. So in the very beginning, when we were in an agricultural society, people simply worked when there was work to do. So at a harvest, they'll be working very hard. Other types of the year, they would have time for, say, religious ceremonies or whatever. And then in 1750, if you need to take a particular date, we invent jobs. So jobs represent a certain amount of work to be done for a certain amount of pay on a certain day. And so that was invented for people then to work on the factory production line. And so we therefore see the rise of jobs. So beginning around, say, 1750, British Industrial Revolution, I argue that we're now come to the end of jobs. There's plenty of work to be done, but not necessarily jobs. So we therefore need to be thinking about how we can educate children for the new era of work, where they'll have a bit of work here, a bit of work there. Then if you look at the evolution of schools, again you could say that for hundreds of years, children were not sent to school, they were educated at home, they grew up working alongside their parents in the field, they learned their farming techniques from looking at their own parents and how they would talk about things at home. And then around, again, 1750, to use the standard date, we then get the invention of schooling. So the phrase that is used in Australia is it is compulsory, secular and free. So we were then educating a group of young people who will then go to work in a factory, and so schools were organised on a factory system. Like factories, they begin at a certain time, they finish at a certain time, there's a clear hierarchy, either a school principal or a manager, and you have layers of command through the system. So the children were socialised into the world of work while they were still at school. The problem is that that world of work is disappearing, but no one's told the teachers. So you've got a problem then. You've got students being prepared for a world that no longer exists. So you've got to think, therefore, about how we reinvent schooling and how also we invent perhaps university education. So on top of all this, you've got the era of digital disruption, the impact of computers. Now, one of the projects in which I've been involved has been different scenarios on the future of schools. So one scenario would see schools abolished, that people will be educated at home via computers. They therefore don't need to go to school. An alternative point of view is to say, no, you must have schooling, not because of the formal education, which of course they certainly can get through computers, but also the socialisation that goes on, the networking, the development of the soft skills. So the hard skills are the black letter qualifications that you get. Soft skills, which come naturally to girls but not to boys, are the networking skills. Because increasingly in the future of work, you've got to have a knowledge not only what you can do, so that's what you know, networking, whom you know, but also who knows you, so it's marketing. Now these are soft skills. They're not getting taught at schools. If you go to Eton, you might get it automatically, but you don't get a formal study of that. So it seems to me that we should be doing far more to prepare students for this new world of work.
Yeah. But what is likely to happen in Australia, for instance? Is government, or in addition to companies, are they?
Educational reform is very difficult because you've got obviously the teachers who continue their own set ways, the educational bureaucracies, and parents or carers. They all have very fixed ideas, and generally speaking, there's a lot of obstacles to trying to, in my view, preparing students for this new era of work. And same thing I've got to say with universities, because I think that universities, we've undergone in the last 30 years a rapid expansion of universities, but universities have now become centres of business rather than provision of education. So it's on asset management, it's looking after your customers, so the students, etc., customer care. So what therefore will be happening with universities, and what intrigues me is again digital disruption and the impact of computers. Is it possible for a student to be educated personally by a computer without having to go to a campus? In other words, the computer will know who they are.
Yeah.
They will know how far they've gone, how quickly they're picking up material. So in fact, you've then got gig learning for a gig economy. So instead of spending 3 or 4 years doing an undergraduate degree with acquiring a lot of knowledge, most of which you will never use, instead you will then just enroll to pick up specific qualification for a specific job. So that's what I'm looking at the moment in terms of the future of universities, because universities think they've got a guaranteed future because we all talk about the knowledge economy. The warning I'm giving them is that in fact with the rise of computers and personalised learning, you may not need to go to university for the actual formal education. You can learn in your own time. We had a Club of Rome conference almost 20 years ago at Open Dominion, the old Dominion University in Virginia, that Virginia in the northeast United States. And it's interesting, that university trains the US Navy. So their students, as well as being on land as ordinary young civilians, that a lot of students are underwater. And they have their own textbooks, access to computers, etc. And so when they've got downtime on the submarine or a battleship, whatever, they've got time to study in their own time when they're ready for it, rather than having to make sure you're ready for 1 hour on a university campus. So it's learning on demand for a gig economy, for work on demand. So it requires a whole new way of thinking about our universities. Now, in an article I've written, I've looked at the 7 major purposes of universities, research, etc. There's really only one that is still a university monopoly, and that is handing out a bit of paper called a university degree. The value of that comes from employers. Once employers say, well, we don't really need university graduates, we're quite happy to take people in if they can prove they can learn quickly, and the computer will give them that record, then we won't need to worry about getting degrees. So maybe in a few decades' time we'll have perhaps 60 universities in the world, all boutique universities. So you have Oxford and Cambridge, etc., big name ones, and you'll go there for the experience, and because you love the learning that goes on there. But the rest of humanity will get their jobs through gig learning.
Well, I mean, the gig learning, I like. Did you use that often?
Yes, I'm using it a great deal.
Yeah.
Gig learning for the gig economy.
For the gig economy.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I was telling you that the World Future Society this year in July, like everybody else, central banks and everybody else, they are trying to see what this blockchain technology, which when we say gig, we say a number of things, including that aspect of it. And there was a particular actually experiment, again in US, with blockchain education.
Right.
So I'll tell you about it. It talks about this kind of how do you get on the way, not only one piece of paper or whatever that means, but more than one.
Yeah.
And you can do that because you associate yourself with different distributed databases, which are actually learning databases. Yeah. So, but of course, it's probably still quite far away. But not too far.
Not too
about
far.
10 years ago,
that's right.
There is nothing to stop them.
You've got to listen for the faint signals of change. The warning I give people is the story of the Fairfax newspaper dynasty, which was in Australia. The longest running newspaper dynasty in the English speaking world. So they published the Financial Review, the Melbourne Age, the Sydney Morning Herald. They would carry in their pages stories about computers and all the changes taking place. But nobody at the board of Fairfax asked, what does all this mean for our basic newspaper model? And so it's virtually bankrupt. They've been shedding the journalists.
Very, very interesting.
They've been blindsided by change because the board have got their own view of the future. And they kept saying, look, people continue to advertise now in our newspapers. We don't need to worry, we've still got the advertising. But as you know, in the last few months, we've got reports that people are now advertising more on Facebook than on newspapers.
Yes.
Yeah. Digital disruption can happen very quickly. You just need a small change and then the momentum builds up considerably.
I was reading news this morning about how to deal with recovering and asking you right about data which otherwise is used by adverts and marketing. And there is an emergence of gig type of groups, like the people.io. You just look at that, which is exactly about trying to stop the adverts which are coming in whatever way that is scam or is just real, but it's using your own data. And there are very many issues that are emerging from this data exchange, which is available there for in the soup for anything. It's no more even the question of having a definition for consumer. Because you're not consuming data or you're not consuming education. You are both a consumer and a provider at the same time.
That's right.
So I don't know if this is what is one of the bases of the emergence of the gig economy. But from the smart partnership point of view, when you say gig economy, of course you say a number of leveraging technology and all sorts of disruptions that are taking place in as positive way as possible, the limitless opportunities as we call it. But you also say not necessarily sharing economy, but you do say a smart partnership type of economy. Now, the smart partnership issue is different from just sharing. It's probably not very much difference, but the smart partnership emphasizes the intellectual equity that is which binds you together. And by intellectual means this. When you say socializing in your case,
exactly.
And networking, maybe you want to come a bit more there, because how do you deal with that?
I think the value of the smart, the value of the smart partnership as an idea is simply, for me, it's a way in which people are exchanging ideas, not only about the work they do, but the work they could do if they were to be employed by this other company or whatever.
That's it.
And that's the value for me of smart partnership. The fear that I've got, going back to the gig economy, again, two scenarios. I always provide 2 or 4 scenarios. So 2 scenarios. The optimistic scenario with the gig economy is that everyone is self-employed. They're all running their own little businesses and they're all working hard because they've got an incentive to succeed. The down scenario with the gig economy is that people are going to be exploited. So they're never going to be able to accumulate assets. They won't be able to buy houses because they won't be able to get a record for getting a mortgage. They're the two scenarios. So it seems to me that instead of focusing so much on the gig economy, we should be focusing on the smart partnership, which is much more an exchange of equals. And it brings in the human rights dimension, whereas the gig economy is just simply a matter of money, figures.
Mechanics. Mechanics, more or less. Engineering.
So we've got to find a way of publicising the smart partnership concept in this new era with the debate over the gig economy.
Well, in the last 2 years, but this year particularly, the smart partnership in the digital age, the emerging digital landscape and smart partnership, but there isn't any focus on it yet, because you need to, we were in Swaziland, and we were discussing with, Smart Partnership Hub with the Prime Minister's office and everybody else about what does it mean smart partnership in digital age now in Swaziland now. And you only need to look to one of the smart partners who is all the time on the mobile, and what that person does, he uses the mobile for finance, for everything else. So the smart partnership actually is a link, is a code of a kind which still keeps them together.
Absolutely.
And that is what has to be defined. Has to be defined there. But I wanted to ask you also, because you reference to jobs and so on. Obviously, jobs meant employment or unemployment. And the reasons why the jobs we recognize in smart partnership movement don't exist, or people are saying unemployment is everywhere, but if you go to Uganda, go everywhere. One of the main aims of the national visions is employment. Well, there is a question of classic or a definition of what means a job and a job description, and which areas. I mean, there are not even there isn't even a recognition that actually there is so much work in areas where you don't have a classic definition of a job. So there are, in parallel with the jobs which don't exist, lots of work to be done in areas which are in between many things. So I'm in Swaziland. There was a lady who just finished dental, done research on 3D printing for dental, including neuro and so on. So she said, I'm not a dentist, I'm not a neuro, I'm not a 3D printing. What am I? What? It doesn't matter, because I need to have a name so that I can get a job. So the new professions need to be articulated in addition to the fact that, and probably that goes with what you're saying, that they're not jobs. But,
so a decline in the number of jobs with plenty of work to be done. How therefore do we finance it? If I were to look at a developed country like England or Australia, one of another campaign in which I'm involved is for a universal basic income. In other words, everyone will get, once they turn 18, everyone gets a flat sum of money from the government. It's a flat sum of money on which to survive. So you get rid of a lot of the existing benefits, you simplify the life immediately. You know, the new Kevin Loach movie dealing with the welfare jungle which exists, with dealing with bureaucracy. All that goes, get one flat sum of money. Now, this is the universal basic income. The Swiss have just voted it down, but then the Swiss invented the work ethic. I can't imagine they're going to be voting to give people money without having to work. But Sweden, the Netherlands, Canada are looking at this UBI. So for me, the value of the UBI is that it puts money into circulation, because I'm very concerned about the way in which computers are destroying jobs. They create a few, but they're destroying a lot of others. Going because of automation.
Machine learning and everything else.
So with computers, they never take leave, they never get sick, they have no personality squabbles, but they don't consume very much either. So how do you therefore generate effective consumer demand? So you put the money back into circulation via the UBI. And in Switzerland, the slogan which they used, unfortunately unsuccessfully, was, what would you do if your income were taken care of? Now, no doubt there'll be some people who will receive the universal basic income and just drink themselves silly, right? That's unfortunately what nature is, like humankind is like. But you get others who are going to work in their garage on the next computer. Because their basic needs are taken care of, that gives them time to experiment. And so we're unleashing new creative power and moving on to the next economic revolution. So therefore I support governments introducing a universal basic income.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting, very, very interesting. Probably you can see that coming, but it's not internalized that way in some of the small countries. You can see that in Lesotho, because there is a need for people to have a basic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there is in Somalia, in situations where countries are recovering or they're trying to recover from being failed states, that is where the experiment is being done. But it's not articulated in that way.
Yeah.
That's very, very interesting.
Good.
Very interesting. Yeah. Anyway, Case, the Club of Rome this year has just published the report to the Club of Rome on reinventing prosperity, and we were discussing about inequality and climate change and jobs.
Yeah.
We're discussing that probably it could be that alongside reinventing prosperity, the transforming prosperity in the way you were trying to articulate would be also as valuable.
Because I'm very much concerned about the group of people called the left behinds. Now, we used to call them the angry white males, now we're calling them the left behinds. But we've seen that in the Brexit vote, we've seen it in Australia with the election of extremist politicians. We may be seeing it in the United States with how well Donald Trump is doing, and who knows if he's going to win the election next week. But what we're seeing is a lot of people who are angry that they've missed out on the wealth they can see going to that elite middle class. So you've got to find a way of keeping those people engaged within the existing political system, so they therefore don't get seduced by political extremists. So you've got to make sure they are also benefiting from the growth of wealth, because the planet is wealthier now than ever before. We've just got to look at this distribution of wealth and work.
This is. So I don't know if that is prosperity still, but what else?
Whatever.
What else? Anyway, I thought that, as usual, having been so consistent and coming to the hub in November, just before annual general meeting, which has been December, I thought we'll give you some reading tips.
Good, thank you.
Tips, which one of our smart partners just shared with us, and he happens to be from Switzerland. We're talking about Switzerland, from the disciplinary research group. And they're preoccupied over the years in a most eccentric but stimulating way you could see, of a number of issues. And this one is about transforming transport on the vision of intelligent mobility. And it's actually very interesting. So,
good. Thanks very much indeed. Lovely. Thank you very much indeed.
Hopefully we'll say something, or we'll share about the Post Club of Rome.
Indeed.
All the CPTM and SMAP partners.
Good. Thank you very much. Thank you.